Hello and welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired and taken care of and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and this episode is all about how to make your relationship emotionally safe. Today, I'm sharing how to have an honest relationship because isn't that the foundation for what makes you feel safe, is feeling trusted and being able to trust? We'll talk about how you can create that. My guest, Mila, was ashamed to be living with fights and hostility that no one knew about, but felt even more hopeless and abandoned when, a month before her due date, her non-committal fiance announced that he was moving out after the baby came. He was definitely ending the relationship. Today, though, she enjoys a peaceful, loving home with the same man who says that marrying her was the best decision he ever made. She's going to give us the scoop on how she created that dramatic turnaround. And then I'll give out the award for the worst relationship advice of the week. You have definitely heard this pop psychology drivel, which sounds convincing, but is just ridiculous hooey that keeps so many people stuck thinking their relationship is definitely hopeless. All that's coming up, but first let's talk about how to make your relationship emotionally safe. If you've ever caught your man lying about where he was, who he was with, or what he was doing, you know how much it stings. If the lies were to cover up his drinking, smoking, or who he was with, it can shake you to your core. After all, how much worse can it get than him lying to his wife? What else is he lying about? Isn't honesty a basic requirement of a marriage? Your friends and family can add fuel to this fire by assuring you that him lying to you is really a serious problem. But before you give him an ultimatum or just stop trusting him completely, consider an approach that will preserve the connection between you. Here are 3 ways to keep your husband honest. Number 1, give him autonomy. Gina encouraged her husband to quit smoking for years, and finally he did. And then one day she smelled smoke on him, but he reassured her that it was because he had been out talking to his friend Joe, and Joe was smoking. She was doubtful, but she wanted to believe him. And then she caught him red-handed, smoking a cigarette, 2 butts in the ashtray. I'm not stupid, she said. I know he started smoking again a while ago, and now I realize that not only is he a smoker, he is not an honest person. But what Gina wasn't considering was the high price she had been making her husband pay for being honest. What if he'd admitted to her, "Hey, honey, I started smoking again"? She would likely have been unhappy and possibly critical or even shaming of that decision. Although she called it encouragement before he quit, her husband might very well have thought of her efforts as nagging and control. And naturally, he didn't want to go back to that. As a mere mortal man, he decided to save himself the hassle and just fib until he quit again. We had the same problem around here when I was constantly monitoring what my husband John spent or how he prioritized his tasks around the house. He lied to me to get me off his back. Now, that doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it okay. But it does make sense when you consider human nature. So one way to create a more honest culture in your relationship is by giving your guy autonomy over his own choices, like smoking, drinking, who he talks to, what he watches. Even if you think it's best that he cut back or stop certain behaviors, know that telling him to do so is discouraging him from being honest with you. And if it's honesty you want, consider relinquishing inappropriate control of his life and focusing more on your own happiness. All right, number 2 is to give him privacy. So as a newlywed, I wrongly assumed that it would be okay for me to read my husband's journal because now that we were 2 who had become 1, there was nothing he would want to hide from me, right? That's embarrassing to admit now, but that is how I thought back then. And these days, I see my husband as a sovereign individual who is entitled to privacy. If your husband has done something in the past that feels like a betrayal, then you might feel he should be completely transparent as an amends. You might think that he should give you the password to his phone, or else it's proof that he's doing something that he shouldn't be. And the flip side is that it's pretty suffocating to know that someone else is watching your every move and wants to know your every thought. It's enough to cause someone to be less than honest so they can breathe a little. So what to do instead? Well, consider making a decision to trust him and affirming that decision out loud to him and to yourself. You could say, I'm grateful I have such a trustworthy husband, for example. People tend to rise to your expectations of them. So why not expect the best? They rise to your expectations, which brings us to how to create emotional safety. So when Curtis was nearly 5, his parents discovered that someone had written CURTIS on the wall in crayon. And when they asked him if he knew who had done that, he shook his head with a vehement, no, it wasn't me. Now, Curtis's motives for lying were pretty obvious. He didn't want to be punished. If he hadn't feared an unpleasant consequence, he wouldn't have bothered to lie. He would have just said, yep, that's my name, Curtis. Same thing goes for your husband. If he doesn't fear an unpleasant consequence, like being criticized, rejected, or punished, then he will feel free to tell you the truth. So number 3 is to be a safe place to land when he tells you the truth. If you find out he was with his friend Joe, who you think is a bad influence, and you say only, oh, how's Joe doing? Without rolling your eyes. And then he learns that he doesn't have to cover his tracks when he's with Joe. He can just tell the truth because he's not going to get in trouble. That's the magic of emotional safety, which is that wonderful feeling you both had when you were falling in love and you knew that you were seen and known and accepted the way you are. And in my experience, it's worth working to get that back, even if it's been gone for a long time. There's so much you can do without his conscious effort, because when you bring more emotional safety yourself, he'll respond to you so much better. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest, Mila, was ashamed to be living with fights and hostility that no one knew about, but felt even more hopeless and abandoned when, a month before her due date, her non-committal fiance announced that he was moving out after the baby came. Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, Mila. Thanks for being here to share your story.
Thanks for having me here today, Laura.
So, things were not going well. You're not married yet, but you're expecting your first baby and your relationship is really struggling. Tell us what it was like.
Yes, we weren't married. We were engaged. And we were expecting our first child, indeed. He had just moved in with me. So we had been together for probably 7-8 months, and we've been living together for 5-6 months, something like that. So we were a fresh couple, new couple. We were very excited to be building a life together. And as he moved in, slowly things just started kind of cooling off, and we started fighting more and more often. He seemed distant, and he seemed to kind of miss his old lifestyle a lot. I started getting scared because I didn't feel that he was committed enough to have a family with me, and of course I was expecting a baby, which made things even more dramatic. The closer we were getting to my due date, the more and more we started to fight, and the more intense the fights were. He just didn't care about anything. He was just annoyed with me all the time, and he didn't want to celebrate Christmas. I was thinking, how is that going to work out? We're going to have a child. They will have to have a Christmas.
Were you starting to feel like this is the wrong man? Like this is not the right man?
Definitely felt like this was the wrong man. And
it's kind of too late because you're pregnant.
It was a bit, that's how it felt. It was a bit too late. I was like, there was no going back because I had my baby growing in me. Yeah.
So was there a moment when you just thought, okay, we can't keep going?
Well, he said he was going to move out because things were not working out between us. And he said, we just don't click. We just don't get along together very well. So we're better off separated, and I'll take care of our child the way people do it. We would not be the first ones or the last ones.
But that wasn't what you wanted.
No, that was not what I wanted. I grew up, my mom raised us alone after my father passed away. So I saw how much she struggled to raise us alone. I didn't want to do it alone. He was determined that I was the best solution for everyone. And he even told his parents. They came over. He shared that with them. Then when I asked his mom, can I speak with you for a second to explain my side of the story, she just said, you have your baby, right? And she just laughed. So I felt totally abandoned, all alone, and very angry and very scared, mostly scared. One thing, though, he did say that he would stay until after the baby was born. So he said that he would stay to help me in the first few weeks after the baby was born. And I was grateful for that. And he did stay. And he stayed a little longer, which was good. But the fights continued. Even the fact that we had a baby was not kind of enough to distract us from getting into fighting. And I was so angry at his parents. I often brought that up, how just not, they seemed so uninterested as well. So I thought it was running in the family. I mean, he's been raised by them, so he's disinterested in me. There's just disinterest, general disinterest in this family. And I just happened to be there, and unfortunately, I was having a baby with this man.
So the wrong man from the wrong family.
Wrong man with the wrong parents, definitely. Okay. Wrongly raised. Yeah.
And always fighting with you.
And always fighting with me. Yeah. And even when I was, having a baby, breastfeeding and taking care full time of a baby. And we were fighting one day, and I said that his parents were selfish, and something broke in him. I think he respects his parents quite a lot, and he just punched me in my lip. So my upper lip was swollen for a few days afterwards. Of course, my sister and my mom, you have to leave this man right now. This is terrible.
Everybody knows that. Everyone, you have to leave. Right, if they're saying
yeah, he did apologize at the end. But after that fight, I kind of went into the shower. I did that quite often after fights, and I was crying in the shower, feeling completely helpless, thinking, what is that? What can I do? Why is this happening to me? And what I realized back then, I had an epiphany, is that all my relationships were kind of similar. They were filled with a lot of anger, fighting. I have had a few relationships before the one with my fiancé. And I also kind of reflected that even my relationship with my mom and my sister was quite often filled with anger and sort of hostility in a way. I kind of realized that I was the common denominator. That. And I thought there must be a way to do something about it. So, it's and I started looking. I just made a point to find a way to save that marriage, and I started looking online, and I found you. Yay!
Yay!
Thankfully,
right? That was painful. So, how do you, Mila? So, and for those who are listening to the podcast, they can't see you, but you're absolutely gorgeous, and you're tall. They can't see that either, and you are well educated, right? You have how much education do you have?
I have a PhD, so I have the highest education possible.
Okay, so you're a smart girl, and I just
think so.
Yeah, I would think so, right? Yeah, I mean that's some evidence, right? And successful, right? Professionally successful, and I just love that context because I think we all have this idea that we see someone who's beautiful and well educated, that everything must be going along really well, and they're like you see the Facebook picture of the happy family, and you go, well, that's it. And so I just love this authentic slice of your life that you're sharing with us. And I guess one question I have is like, how do you think you had this epiphany? I know it just came to you in the shower, like I'm the common denominator, but how did that happen? What do you think brought that on?
What did bring it on? I don't know. I think it was just, it was just a realization at that moment. I tend to kind of think about it as some kind of a divine interference at that moment. Right? It was definitely something that hadn't occurred to me beforehand. I had never thought. I always believed that I was perfect. I knew how to be in a relationship, and
you're smart and beautiful, so
yeah, and indeed my beauty compensated for everything. So if I was beautiful, so why wouldn't he want to be with me? Well, as my husband said later on, beauty cannot keep me somewhere where I feel unwanted, and he called it hostile environment, so he made it very hostile for me back at the day. So, but yeah. Anyway, so that I don't remember exactly what caused that. It was definitely a feeling of epiphany. It was like, oh my God, that's really, it's been me all along. And which was also good news in a way, because I felt empowered. I felt like, oh, well, if it's me, then I might be able to change things. And let's see, but what do I do? What do I do? And then I found you. And the skills are just so amazing. They're so clear, so well explained, and so well packaged with tools that you can put in practice immediately and see results. That was the first thing that really kind of worked for me, because I had read a few books on relationships and a lot made sense from previous times, but I was never able to implement anything. So for the first time, after reading one of your books and reading through the blog articles on the website, I started implementing things, bits and pieces, and I can tell in a bit of what exactly, and I actually saw results. So that was for me the big difference.
What did you start doing differently than what you had been doing?
Well, first I really started taking care of myself. So I had completely forgotten myself. I was as I got pregnant and then had my first baby. It's quite normal, I think, to kind of put yourself maybe for a while second. But what I didn't realize that at that moment, putting myself second was actually causing me to be a lot less patient, a lot less tolerant, openly hostile, tired. So that was actually affecting the relationship. I didn't know that at the time. To be honest, I didn't really believe what is self-care. How is that going to change my relationship? Well, right. It felt right to do it. I didn't believe it would change my relationship, but it felt right to do it. And then suddenly I saw. So I started going back to yoga. That was the first thing that I really did, because yoga is one of my passions, and I always feel amazing after yoga. I kind of started buying clothes, beautiful clothes again. I had stopped doing that after I got pregnant. Started putting makeup, take care of myself. Do my hair again, go to the movies, see friends, so everything that I had stopped doing after I got in a relationship with my husband, with my fiancé at the time, now my husband. And I immediately felt happier and fitter and somehow less focused on him and everything he did wrong. So I was able, because I was happier and fitter and kind of filled up with joy, I was less, I tended to be less kind of focused on him and less prone to telling him what I saw wrong in him. So that was the first thing that really made a big difference for us. So things suddenly became quieter, and the fights became less often.
It was more peaceful. Was there a moment when you thought, okay, this is really working?
Oh yes, definitely. I'll never forget that moment. We went out for dinner with friends, and we went to the nearby Mexican restaurant. And we walked to the table. It was the four of us, me, my fiancé at the time, and a couple of friends, a woman and a man. And as we were kind of settling onto the table, he tried to help me with my coat. So he took my coat off, and then he just took me by the waist, kind of flipped me around, and just did that little sensual slow dance with me, looking into my eyes. Exactly the same way he had done it when we were dating. So, and I kind of felt this warmth going through my body, and I kind of melted in his arms, and that all happening in front of everyone in the restaurant, and him doing it with that beautiful smile, and then shining joy and happiness, and just pure pleasure to look at me and be there with me. That was on his face.
No, this is like a movie. That's that's Julia Roberts being turned around right by the leading man.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, that's how you felt. Yeah, no, so. What's your relationship like now? That's been a few years, right? Or how long has that been?
It's been a few years, indeed. A lot has happened for us since. So as I said, we were engaged, and he wanted to move out. And thankfully, I found the skills on time, and things started getting much better. Started becoming better as I was getting better with the skills. And he had put the wedding on hold, so we were not on hold. We called it off basically, and then at some point, I think it was 9 months into me practicing the skills, he started talking about the wedding again. So we started planning our wedding again, and we got married 5 months later. We got married in Holland, then we got married another time in my home country, Bulgaria. We had a beautiful, beautiful wedding, actually 2 of them. And then I got pregnant again. So in that time, we also had another baby. We moved into a bigger house, and actually my dream is becoming a reality of having that stable, strong family to grow our kids in and give the safety and joy to our kids with it.
Your 2 kids. Yeah. And do you celebrate Christmas now?
We do. So we had an amazing Christmas, and that's how things are these days here. I wanted to have, we've just moved into our new house. It's a big house. It takes some time for us to get it ready to be cozy and comfy. And I really wanted to have a cozy Christmas. I wanted to have curtains. You can see them behind me.
They're beautiful.
I wanted to have carpets. I just wanted to welcome our guests, our family and friends into a cozy living room with fireplace, and we have a beautiful Christmas together. That was a lot had to be done as I expressed desires for what I wanted and relinquished control over when things will be done. suddenly, the day before Christmas, I turned around and I had everything I wanted. I noticed I had the curtains, I had the carpet, I had the flowers, the plants, I had the fireplace with the beautiful stones, and I was just filled with gratitude for that man who just planned everything and made sure that it happened on time, because I had said that I wanted to have a cozy Christmas in the house. And we had beautiful celebration. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is such a beautiful house." We were just very pleased to be able to welcome everyone in that in our cozy home. And when we went to sleep, as we were falling asleep, he said to me, "Well, thank you for marrying me, and thank you for staying married to me. This is the best decision I've ever made, marry you." And I'm like, "Oh." It's the best thank you I had ever gotten. No.
This is the same guy that was going to leave you right after the baby was born. That's an amazing story, Mila.
Yeah.
So
the same guy that didn't care that I was pregnant and I was expecting a baby, and the same guy now gives everything for me, and he's
so
grateful every day that he's married to me. How wonderful!
Yeah, you had a dream. You had just a seed of a dream to have this beautiful family, and it looked impossible at one point. It looked hopeless. That was not going to happen. In fact, you should leave him, and he was going to leave you anyway.
Yeah.
And now instead, there's this family where you're welcoming extended family into your beautiful home that you worked as a team to create that coziness with. So
he didn't even want to celebrate Christmas, remember? He didn't care about Christmas
now. I know, and you were like, "How's this going to work?"
Yeah.
But it sounds it's over the top celebration of Christmas now, right?
These days it's over the top. It's a makeover of the whole house plus family, extended family, and friends coming over.
I love it. Yeah. So if you could go back in time and talk to yourself before, when you were feeling so abandoned and hopeless, what do you know now that you would say to yourself then?
I guess I would just give myself a hug and tell myself, hey, don't worry, it's not hopeless. You just need to learn a few things. You just need to learn how to be in a relationship. You haven't learned that in school or university. No one teaches us
Was it part of the PhD?
No, it wasn't. And I thought I knew everything, right? Because I had a PhD. I was supposed to know everything. But I really didn't know how to respect the man. I didn't know how to trust the man, how to have faith in the man, and in general, how to be in a relationship, in a happy relationship with another human being.
Not just your husband, in other words, not just your fiance.
Yeah.
So now you have become a relationship coach. You are on our campus coaching women, helping them have this transformation that you've had from hopeless, struggle and hostility to enjoying peace and connection. So what's your tip for the woman who's listening who thinks her relationship is hopeless and hostile and she's feeling abandoned also?
It's not hopeless. That's what I would like to tell her. There's always hope. I wish I had known earlier. I wish I had someone around me as a role model for a happy marriage or relationship.
Your mom couldn't be that, right?
No, unfortunately. Well, yeah, she lost my father quite early, so I didn't see much of a happy, successful kind of well-operating family dynamics. Too much. I just saw my mom struggling to raise us and trying to fill in for both herself and my father. What I would say is not hopeless. It just needs someone to guide you through the process of learning and unlearning habits that have been created over the years and learning new and more kind of empowering and effective ways to interact with your husband or fiance or boyfriend, which would be beneficial for both, more beneficial for both you and him and the relationship and the kids, if there are any kids in the family, and everyone around you, I would say.
And how does being that role model, being that you're a beacon of hope, right, for other women, that this is possible, how does that affect your relationship?
Oh, it definitely inspires me to be my best self in a relationship. Of course, it adds another dimension to my motivation, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Mila, your story is so inspiring. It's amazing. It's very rare to get to hear a story like this, where you've really taken us behind the curtain and shown us what it was like in your relationship. Why would you be willing to share these details with us?
Oh, I don't want any other woman to suffer the way I suffered. It was so painful and I felt so helpless, and I felt so stuck and not knowing what to do. And that's a very, very painful place to be. And I don't want any other woman to suffer that. We have such an amazing power as women. We hold the key. We hold the power in relationships. So if we can reclaim that, we would not suffer. So that's why I do it.
Oh, I love that. Mila, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story with us.
Oh, you're most welcome, Laura. It was a pleasure for me to be here.
If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week Award.
It's the worst relationship advice. The worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice. The worst relationship advice of the week.
Oh boy, was I ever hooked into this goofy, ridiculous hogwash. And just thinking about it still makes me want to scream and push the table over. Okay, you ready? Here it is. Your relationship is broken because you picked someone to repeat your unresolved psychological issues from childhood with. So the reason you're having relationship problems is because in your childhood, your parents messed you up and you are still acting out that drama. Like, you never felt like you could get your father's love, so you married someone who doesn't pay attention to you because it's familiar. Oh, please. Okay. Or maybe it was on his side, like your husband's mother was enmeshed with her son, and now that's why he's emotionally unavailable. That's the kind of thing you hear. So if your parents made any mistakes with you or his parents made any mistakes with him, you're both pretty much doomed. Forever. And let's not forget, ever. Unless you go to years of therapy, and then you'll still have to end your marriage and find someone else. So to illustrate how ridiculous that is, let's apply this theory to something else, like say, getting a job. So you picture a 17-year-old who's trying to get his first job or her first job and not succeeding. And you probably wouldn't say, let's go back to when you were 8 and let's talk about what happened that's blocking you. More likely you try to give that kid some skills like how to make a resume, how to get in front of potential employers, and how to interview well. And it might not work to just tell that teenager to go online and research it, right? Probably they would need more support than that, right? Most people do. The same is true with relationships. You need some intimacy skills and a connection framework to be successful. And that's just a matter of training and coaching and community. It's just like driving a car, just like making an omelet, just like using accounting software. You just need to learn how. That's all. If you weren't trained in the intimacy skills, then you know what? They are going to feel awkward and uncomfortable at first, just like learning to drive did, or cooking an omelet did, or learning accounting software probably did too. I have no idea. I've never learned accounting software. But the good news is that you're not hopelessly broken, and neither is he. But if things are rough at your house, well, consider getting some support on how to have a playful, passionate relationship, just the way you get some support on anything else you want to be successful in life. And for that reason, the advice that your relationship is broken because you picked someone to repeat your unresolved psychological issues from childhood is the worst relationship advice I've heard all week. All week. Be sure to subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll be revealing how to know who has the most true power in your relationship. It is so important to have fun. Today's fun fact is that when my friend Megan invited me to go for a walk with her and her newborn baby, I told her that I thought it was great that the baby was walking already.